Hello and welcome to What Would She Do? I'm your host, Saran Almond. In today's climate where we are facing economic crises, the pandemic, social injustice, racism, just abundance of things that are affecting our youth adversely. So I've partnered with Community Alliance to moderate a webinar to provide information and resources regarding matters of mental health, racism, social injustice, as well as the pandemic. So I want to first introduce you to the founder of Community Alliance, Ms. Brenda Hedden. Today we have Brenda Hedden of Community Alliance with us. Welcome, welcome, welcome to What Would She Do?
Thank you for having me on. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So you have an organization called Community Alliance. Could you please share with our viewers what your organization's mission is?
Well, our mission is to help the community to develop educational programs and to enhance the community through educational programs and opportunities that we can develop for them.
Awesome. So like you just shared, we just ended a youth summit where the topics of mental health and racism and social injustice, as well as the COVID-19 pandemic was addressed. Why was that important for you to address right now?
Well, it's the environment that we're in, the temperature of the room with all of the social racism, the social injustice, the COVID-19, people dying left and right, the changing in how these kids are now going to school, the no longer being able to talk to your friends and communicate with different people, just you're kept in from the outside world. And for their mental health, depression is a big thing right now. And I needed that to be addressed. And I needed the social media aspect of our environment to be addressed as far as safety is concerned and how you're using it.
Thank you so much for being a leader, a change agent in our community. Thank you so much for continuously encouraging our youth. You guys are in for a treat. Stay tuned for the Community Alliance Online Youth Summit. We're going to start this conversation on the topic of mental health. And with that, we like to begin with defining exactly what that is. So to our panel, what is mental health?
Your feelings, your emotions, and basically, I guess something you probably pull off the internet. They probably include social well-being as well. Just like you have your physical well-being, this is basically your mind, your cognitive facility. So, I'll give you an example. I know physically, if you fall off a bike, you scarp your elbows. You might need to go to the doctor, stitching, and all that good stuff. That's more physical health. But if you're having some negative thoughts of, wanting to do harm to someone, yourself, just not feeling good, just not low motivation, not feeling like yourself, that's more of your, that's more mental health based.
What are the different types of mental health that our youth should be aware of?
A lot of things that may come, that you all may need to be familiar with are, of course, depression. I know you probably heard that word thrown out a million times on television. If you're in school, that's probably happening there too. Also anxiety, which is kind of like nervousness, worrying. Might want to kind of look at some of that too. And depending on what age range, like if you're in middle school, there's some identity complications as well that you all might want to kind of become familiar with, because I know you're kind of struggling to figure out who you are in these times. So,
in your professional experience, are there a lot of young people dealing with mental health right now, especially with the climate of America today?
we see a lot of young people coming into the hospital setting, calling, having their parents call our offices in regards to definitely having some issues with depression, feeling overwhelmed by everything that's happening and going on right now, especially a lot of the racial injustice, the social injustice as well. There's a lot going on. And then also trying to get them connected with outpatient services when they leave the hospital as well. So there's definitely, we've seen just a abundance of adolescents coming through the department as of, since the pandemic started. It's definitely been a lot. And it's ramping back up now with school getting ready to start back, because a lot of children are very anxious right now. A lot of adolescents are thinking about what's next? What am I doing? What's the plan? And of course, we as adults, we're trying to figure that plan out as well. So yeah, a lot of them are struggling.
So what are the signs of that you may be dealing with a mental health issue? Like how would anyone know if they're having a mental health situation?
I think it's important for people to know the difference between having normal day-to-day blues or feelings of sadness. I think when you look into depression, you're looking at something more severe. You're looking at lack of motivation, or you don't want to participate in some of the activities or the fun things that you used to do. Now you're sleeping, or you want to be socially isolated, or your appetite has changed where you are not engaging as much as you used to. So all of those are symptoms and signs of depression when they're on a severe type of level. So I definitely want to, tell people the difference between having a bad day. That's not necessarily depression. However, it doesn't mean that it can't be the starting signs of depression. So making sure that you're paying attention to yourself as a teen, yourself as an adult, and parents really look at what your kids are doing and how they're feeling. Are they normally, they can't wait for this show, or they want to play this game and all of a sudden that's not their life anymore? They just kind of want to be isolated. I also think it's important for you to understand that now that we're social distancing, we don't have that connection anymore with our friends. So a lot of people are really looking at, well, who am I if I'm not able to talk to my friends? Who am I if I'm not able to go out and be myself?
I do see a question from Ms. Burr where it says, does yelling at your child or children have something to do with the mental health? Possibly. So there's no real, I guess, just kind of going back, I don't want everybody's symptoms will be different it could be the same issue. So right now, hey, pandemic is happening. Everyone here should probably be experiencing it. And, hey, my symptom is I'm just isolating because I don't trust anyone. Someone else's may be that they're frustrated because they don't have that outlet. So all symptoms are different. In that case, just being honest, we would have to get a lot more information.
If there's a young adult out or listening to you right now, maybe they are not experiencing any depression or anxiety, but they have a friend who they feel is in need of something. What, as a young person, can you do to extend yourself to help another person in need?
So being in college, you do have a lot of people who do go through depression. It is diagnosed depression, being that they are away from home, being that they're not doing well in their classes. It's a multitude of things that we as college students, we go through in the midst of trying to get an education. And so depression looks different on everybody. And then sometimes people don't even know they're depressed because they're not taught of those signs. Just have a simple conversation. Are you okay? Do you need to talk about something? You want to go get some food? Try to make them comfortable enough so they can have a conversation with you, so you can eventually help them.
What are your thoughts about mental health as it relates to social media?
Our social media is just heavily diluted with a lot of what's going on in our climate right now. It's kind of hard to stay focused right now. It's pretty hard because every day is something new, as far as, especially being in 2020, it just feels like something is new every day. And so it's kind of causing us to be desensitized almost. And it hurts because we shouldn't have to see a new hashtag every day, or we shouldn't have to worry about, okay, if I step outside today, is is today going to go completely left? Especially the young Black men, those are the thoughts that, you know, run through their mind before they leave the house, because it is literally something new every day. So it's like, just even going back on campus to school, it's like you're taking a risk, because you don't know if you're gonna be next, or if something's gonna happen to you.
We do have a question in the chat from Davon Gurley. Seeking help for our mental issues is seen as a taboo in our community. How do we encourage our youth, our young people, to feel comfortable to seek services and encourage others to recognize that mental health is an integral part of our total health?
I've had a lot of clients to come in who are nervous about joining into therapy. I've even worked in a school system being a therapist, where I've had kids who wanted to see me, but said, is there any way that I can make an appointment with you without you telling my parents? Unfortunately, I wasn't able to do that, because of course we need parents' consent. I understand that in the Black community, sometimes that, like she said, we are taught to depend on the church, depend on your mom and father, your sister. You can talk to us if that is the case, but sometimes they need a little bit more. They need some clinical assistance. We are just here to be a support to you for whatever it is that you need.
So as we try to encourage our youth through their mental health as they're dealing with today's climate, we want to talk about social media as it relates to social justice and racism. What exactly is justice in a time like this?
Justice really means fairness. Justice really means treating everybody equally and fair. The other things to recognize is that this whole notion of justice is not always about Black and white. It's sometimes about how we treat each other. Just as we're seeing the things that are happening in our community as it relates to the police violence that is showing up, we also see what's happening in our own neighborhoods, our own communities, in our own schools. And so we have to think about it. How are we treating people? Are we treating people nice and kind, or are we causing harm to people intentionally or unintentionally? So some of this around justice is about how we're being nice and kind to people, or how we're being mean-spirited to people. And we have to look at it in terms of ourselves. We have a responsibility to that. We have responsibility to how we think. We have responsibility to how we feel. We have responsibility to how we act and how we behave. But also, we can have a responsibility in how we react to how things happen to us. Sometimes there's a part of our accountability that's not always the fault of other people. Sometimes it's our own. And I think we have to hold multiple truths in the space at the same time. Yes, Black people being treated differently about cops, Black people being treated in the education system and law enforcement, in the court system, when you're out in the public, you're being trailed in the mall or supermarket. Yes, those things are happening. But at the same time, there are things that are also happening within our schools, within our neighborhoods, within our families, that we should look at how we can begin to do some of those things a little bit better as well.
In regards to racism, how is it different now as opposed to the history of racism in America?
It's more blatant, and it's more in your face. When I was growing up, it was more so, I don't like using the word, but it was softer. It was more innuendos. Now it's just, oh, I can say that, it's whatever. That's my opinion. I think that's the biggest thing with people, is that they look at racism and they label it as, that's my opinion, that's how I feel, when there's a thin line between my opinion and you're being very disrespectful and ignorant.
But when we talk about race, we look at one race who has power. One race, which is the white race, that have the power and influence to shape the rules and policies, to shape the narratives and stories about people of color, even themselves. And it's also about not sharing power. So when we talk about power as it relates to money, as it relates to jobs, the economy, as it relates to contracts, as it relates to businesses, we have to understand that some of our neighborhoods and our poor neighborhoods are that way because there is a lot of rules that were put in place to create them that way. When we think about funding our education system, there were rules that were put in place to keep them that way. From a perspective of how whites have been given value, respect, the benefit of doubt, privileges, access to things that people of color have not, then and now. But also we have to acknowledge that our country, our schools have failed us in educating us and being honest about race and racism. And we have to hold those systems accountable. We have to hold people accountable if they're treating people unfairly and they're treating people differently. But it starts with us, and it starts with us being willing to change ourselves, and it starts with us having to educate ourselves.
For people who are feeling disconnected from family and friends due to quarantine and having to self-isolate because of COVID and what's happening in this pandemic, do you have anything to offer to those students, those young people? Like, what can or should they be doing?
I recommend for people to really use their imagination and their creativity. This is the time to get creative on what you can do to stay in tune and stay connected with your family and your loved ones. I think a lot of the depression that we're seeing now is because they don't have those social outlets. Get creative as far as I've seen people do paint parties on Zoom. I've seen people have conversations, coffee and conversations. I've seen people do things like that. So right now, I would encourage you to do things that you've never done before and get moving as much as you can to not just be in the house and be isolated.
As our young people are seeking resources on how to adapt and adjust to our new way of being, what do you have to offer regarding internet safety and what that would look like for our young people?
I really think that with the internet safety, I really think that parents right now, during this era, I really think that we all need to be involved. We need to make sure that our kids are being safe. There are predators out there. There are individuals that are, faking to be someone else or faking to be someone your age. So, we definitely have to make sure that we're paying attention to what our children are doing, and also, having an open line of communication where they can actually talk to you. I see a lot of younger individuals are on social media doing the most right now, but while you're out there doing the most on social media, just be mindful that other people are watching, and there are people out there that will, do things, say things, and try to lure you in. Of course, I tell anyone, if something happens or something goes on, and it's, social media based, you can always call the police on that too. You can call the police and let them know that something has happened, and they will follow up.
For our panelists, what is it that you like our participants to walk away with?
I would like for them to walk away with knowing that there is support out there. And there's different avenues of getting support. It doesn't have to be a clinical therapist like myself. If it's needed, it's needed. But also look to your friends, look to your family. I would like for you to take away that when you know better, you can do better.
I just want to let every youth that's on this call right now to know that you are capable of whatever that you set your mind to.
Because mental health is so real, and mental illness is one thing that's real also, that we really, really need to be able to take care of ourselves and think about what's happening and be able to be flexible with ourselves and take care of ourselves. We don't have to be perfect human beings out here, but we have to be individuals that want to make some change, see some change, be about the change, want to be a part of the solution.
I just want, everybody, and that includes panelists as well, to know that we Black folk here are the strongest of the strongest. All right. If you do know, and I know everybody know the lesson of the Middle Passage, right? And a lot of us, died off, unfortunately. But I want you to know that if you're here, you survive, and your bloodline is the strongest of the strongest. So I want you to take that physically, mentally, and know that, hey, if you're feeling down, of course, get the help that you need, but you can do and achieve anything that you want, because you are the strongest of the strongest.
You're here to gather information. So take this information and go back and see what you can incorporate into your life and lifestyle The second thing I would leave is that when we talk about change doesn't happen overnight. You can protest for a moment, but that doesn't mean you're there for the movement. And so some people may show up for that experience and engage in that for a few days. So the question happens, what do you do after that? Mm-hmm. Or do you wait to the next protest just to show up? What are you doing in between protesting?
All right, so that was a snippet of the information that was provided during the webinar. You can also follow the show on Instagram and Twitter at WWSD_the show. To learn more about Community Alliance and the panelists that participated in this webinar, please visit my website at www.whatwouldshedothe.show.com. Till next time, stay safe, stay healthy, and be encouraged. I'm your host, Saran Almond, and this is What Would She Do?